Hello everybody, welcome to another exciting hair-raising fun-filled episode of Radiorama, where as I show you, as the name implies, we're going to work on radios. And today we have a 1938 General Electric model G-53, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, G-53 is the model numero. I do not know if it works or not. This radio wasn't given to us, it's on consignment. We're going to split it 50-50 with the owner. This is going to go into our future auction happening a couple months from now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up slowly on the Variac and see what happens. Okay, so I've got it hooked up to the Variac. What I'm going to look for is how much amperage, how much current it's drawing. If it starts drawing excessively, then you've got a problem. Okay, we're about 40 volts. Let's get to 50 volts. Okay, amperage, not much.
So now I'm going from a half a meg to 1.5 meg. Oh, wait a minute! All of a sudden it is working. We got something.
I see. Don't smell anything. I see pilot lights.
Put it back in the other.
Still not drawing that much. Okay. Okay. Filter caps are completely shot. You should not keep a radio with a power transformer powered on with bad electrolytic capacitors, or you'll be sorry. So, let's see what's going on back here. Does it work?
It does.
Oh, look.
There's something there.
It's like kind of cooking.
Yeah,
I'm at the shop today, and Rajesh is working on a, I can't remember what year was this made, 1947 Motorola. Alright, so now I'll get back to I just get distracted here. Anyway. Okay, so it looks like it's been worked on. This is a replacement electrolytic capacitor. It says it has 3 8 microfarad caps inside. Positive and negative. Black, yellow, brown, negative. So black and yellow. That's our common ground right there. Which then... Alright, that's a floating ground. 1, 2. This brown is out of use. So there's two electrolytic capacitors here and you need to connect. Alright, so replace these 2 electrolytics. Cut all the old wires out. So now let's bring it back up on the Variac again and see if that restores a radio. Okay. Turn it on. That must be on off the volume.
So what we need is a
Tone.
5-volt motor, because this thing had a Swiss music box in it with an amplifier.
Oh.
Let's see if it's drawing anything.
The brushes were totally rotted off the armature, you know.
Alright.
So I've got like 3 volt. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no continuity.
I'm not going to pick up much in here because there's no antenna.
Yeah. And see, so is this thing, I wonder if this is pressed on or that's actually... That's the problem, is getting your shaft back. I don't know, sometimes they just...
Okay, I killed the hump, but I need to get an antenna on this thing. Alright, seems to work. Alright, the contacts are really messed up on this guy, they're gunky. Alright, so now that we've established that the radio works, time to start replacing the paper capacitors. And there are, already placed one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 electrolytics. And also need to, not electrolytics, paper caps. Need to replace this rotten cord too. Even though it's surprisingly still very flexible for being 1938. I need to clean these controls, they're pretty dirty. I swear, this looks like a replacement. Because it looks like it's been filed down. I don't know, maybe not. Alright, so we got all the capacitors replaced. Got a new cable installed, and now I'm going to clean all of the contacts, electrical contacts anyway. Raj is helping me with the sound effects. He's working on this oscilloscope that apparently has a bad PNP germanium. Did I say it right? Or geranium? Germanium transistor is out. Okay, I've flipped the setup now that it works. They've got some very crumbly wire. Observe. Not good. And that's on the 6-volt filament line. So if that were to short, say goodbye to your power transformer. So we need to replace the wiring on those lights. It looks like this one has already been replaced, probably because it had problems. So let's do that, and then maybe I'll clean up the chassis a little bit. It's kind of gross. I don't see any evidence of mouse turds or anything like that, which is good. Okay, now that I've cleaned some of the tubes and stuff, I'm going to clean all the contacts up here. Some deoxit. And let's get the other side. So we got that cleaned up. And then we're going to oil the tuning bearings right here. There we go. And now that will... Jesus, it's like 80-something degrees out there, and in the shop it's like 90. Like sweating like a pig. Alright, so I'm going to test it again to make sure it works. Alright, let's try it again now. That'll probably look pretty cool when it's back in the cabinet. Bend those down a little bit. Alright. Hopefully things will be a little smoother since I cleaned all the controls.
Just threw the only walk of the game issued by Steven Matz, but he departs 5 1/3, 8 hits, 3 runs for now, 1 walk, 4 strikeout. Those who want to be like utilize a program.
I'm not thrilled with that reception, so it is sensitive, but it's not strong, so I'm going to check the IF related tubes since I'm here and we have 10,000 tubes downstairs. Guess what? 688 was bad, like super bad. So I'm going to go to the tube vault and get some tubes. Well, actually, tube 688, 688, 688. Where could it be? 6A. 6A. 6AG. How many 6As can there be? 6A. Here we go. It's up in this box. Let me get one of those. Alright, so it's been a few days. I brought the General Electric home with me so I can do some finishing up on it. The electronics are mostly done. I want to clean this cabinet. It's pretty dirty. It looks like someone put their grubby little hands all over it. Or maybe it was in the kitchen, because we've got all this discoloration up here. And so I think, first things first, I'm going to have to find a way to clean that up. What I tend to do is go over the whole thing with Old English just to make sure that all the weird discoloration kind of gets evened out a little bit. But you can sometimes remove this stuff with Gojo hand cleaner. I've never used that method before. Maybe I'll try it a little bit on just a little part to see what happens. So I just tried that. I don't have Gojo, but I think this Goop stuff is the same. It's like a waterless orange citrus-based cleaner, and you can see how much crap just came off of there just now. That did a good job. I think what I'll do is I'll just go over this whole thing with that. I'm going to take the guts out before I do that and clean it up here, and then I'll take it outside and use the oh so famous aforementioned Old English and maybe some Howards, maybe some wax. This needs a lot of work. This down here is photo finish, so you got to be careful. If you sand that off there, that's gone. Then you're going to have ugly looking wood underneath. Well, like a very plain looking wood. It'll eliminate some of that pizzazz. You know what? I feel like I learned something new all the time. I've never used orange hand cleaner to clean wood. It's filthy. That took that all off pretty easily. I only spent about 5 minutes and I got all of it off. Previously I would have used like an abrasive, but that worked a lot, probably a lot more gentler too. Interesting. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to take this outside and use some Old English and some other stuff to kind of even up the finish. Let that soak for a little bit, and then go after. Sounds like I'm British. Going to after. I will go after the finish with some wax and mechanical buffer. And probably while I'm at it, I'll buff this up too, this discussion. It's a little warped. This tinite plastic did not hold up well over time. But then again, they were just figuring out plastics back then. A lot of it had, believe it or not, milk-based products. There was a type of plastic called caseinite. If you think about it, it makes sense. Casein, which is a milk product. I've got a radio in my house that uses a very early version of it, and when it gets hot, it stinks like puke. And so it's in a part of my house where people usually don't sit, because that's what it stinks like. Anyway, I'll quit blabbering, take that off of there, take it outside, get some Old English, and see if I can improve the overall tonality and evenness of the finish. All right, so now it's time to soak this with Old English. You need to go to the store and get more of it, along with more of that fabulous orange hand cleaner. I'm still blown away by that, but what we want to do is kind of work the Old English into the finish, and you can see what it does. It kind of disguises and covers up a lot of scratches, abrasions, and discolorations. And the other thing we're going to do after we get this soaked several times with this is then we're going to go over it with some natural Carnauba paste wax to kind of seal in the finish and make it shiny, because it was pretty shiny from the factory. It's just the finish is obviously worn out from age and exposure to things like UV and moisture, bugs, cigarette smoke, grubby children's fingers, cat hair, mouse urine, you know, all those things combined together. And so your radio can look really nasty, and we're just undoing all of that. And we're not stripping it. A lot of people, they see something like this and they're like, I have to strip it. It's like their gut reaction is just like, strip it! And sure, maybe the finish on this is not going to be perfect when it's done. As soon as you strip a 90-year-old radio, that original finish is gone forever, and everyone who looks at it will be able to tell it's refinished. And to be honest, most people aren't very good at refinishing things, myself included. I'm pretty bad at it. The people who are truly good at it basically are in a league of their own, and some of them can make a truly believable, original looking finish, and hats off to those guys. They will spend 20, 30, 40 hours doing that. And so I don't have time for that, but I do really respect those guys. But most of the people that I see will do things like me and use polyurethane, and they'll brush it on, and it you know, it looks okay, but it's not right. The only reason I do it is if I come across a radio that's going to be thrown in the dumpster, and it's a last recourse. Okay, so it's looking a lot better. Brought it back inside, because what I'm going to do is I got a clean cloth, and I put some warm water on it. And what I want to do is come in. Let me take my glasses off. As I'm getting older, I find that I can see better up close without them on. I went to the eye doctor. I kind of mentioned that. I was like, should I be concerned? He's like, nope. As you age, you're tried to explain it to me. The lens on your eye as you age becomes less flexible, so it doesn't react as quickly or something like that. He explained it to me and it all made sense, but of course I'm not a medical person, so when in one ear out the other. Long story short, like I don't even wear my glasses at work anymore. It's really strange, because I work with on a computer all day. Anyway, you can see I'm just kind of like getting a little dirt out of these nooks and crannies. It just kind of, those little touches like that kind of help with your overall presentation, because a lot of people, they won't bother to do this, and so it's like you just see like a little bit of filthy grime, and this represents years and years of that stuff accumulating. You can see I'm just moving around the rag. I don't know why I'm doing that. You don't see that, but I'm just going to do it anyway. So I'm just going to kind of clean this up real good. And it's important to use a clean cloth because you don't want to stain the grill fabric. So I'm just going to go over it a few times. It's looking a lot better. I'm going to put this back out in the sun, let it sit for a few minutes, and then I'm going to start using the wax applicator and try to bring back the sheen of the finish, because this, what's on it now, is temporary. Once that oil evaporates, all that's left behind is the stain. And so we want to make sure I'm kind of bring back the finish, because it's abraded with age and wear and UV exposure. And most of these came from the factory. Glossy, as I said, that was what was popular. All right, so now I've got my I got this drill bit attachment. It's like a foam pad, and with it I apply paste wax, which I'm also running low on. I need to make a grocery list of things, radio things. And so what I do is I come down here and I hold this. It's not, see, that's not supposed to happen, but you get the idea. Just get some on the pad and then go over the whole thing like this. Take your time. You know, the thing is that you got to remember, you're removing like 90 years worth of grime, haze, and abrasion. This is a lot easier than do it by hand. I used to do it by hand and I'll give myself cramps in the hands. So this is saving my hands, and it does a better job anyway. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And now what I need to do is work on the other stuff. So I'm going to wax the escutcheon and the knobs while I still have this out. This makes things a lot easier. And then I'm going to go back to the cabinet, not the cabinet, but the chassis. Okay, so I got the cabinet back together, and I got the escutcheon polished and cleaned. And now I want to return my attention to the chassis. There's a few things I did not like that I saw when I was at the museum, and I just wanted to get home and really concentrate on it. We've got some wiring in here that's completely dry rotten and missing insulation, so I'm going to replace some of these, you know, the ones that are floating in the air, not touching anything, I'm less concerned about. But this one right here, where does that go? That goes right there. And there's another paper cap I forgot, so I need to replace that too. Just a few things I want to kind of like neaten up. I've got this guy here too, which I think is probably, that's the across the line cap, so I need to replace that. It says mica mold. A lot of people confuse those for being a resistor, and they are not. They are a capacitor. I don't care what value it is, because I know what the right value needs to be, which is 0.01 X2 Y2 across the line. Okay, I feel a little bit better about that. I replaced some of those dangly, rotten wires that are in critical places, and I also put the across the line cap in up here. Just so it gets struck by lightning, that'll zap open versus fusing together. But they're pretty durable. So what we want to do now is add the oh so famous audio input that I add to all these guys. We're going to come in through the volume pot, and since this is an electrically isolated chassis, because it's got a power transformer, we don't need to add an isolation transformer. That is, unless the gain on this is not sufficient, which I think it will be. If the gain is too weak, then you can add an isolation transformer to boost the signal, but we're going to try it without first. I am going to drill out an existing hole, just make that hole bigger right here, and then run audio cable through, and then we'll have the positive of the audio goes to the top of the volume pot, which goes to that first IF can, and then the other side, you can tell it's also the top of the pot because it goes to the volume control, not the volume control, but the tone control too. So that's by default the bottom of the pot. That'll be the negative, and we're going to run both the right and left channels together through a set of 33 ohm resistors, so that we mix the two right and left channels together to get mono. So we'll try that out and plug it in and see if we get any juice, any life out of the speaker with the audio. Okay, so we have the rubber grommet coming through here. Tied a knot in the cord, and that comes through. We have a couple of 33 ohm resistors going into the top of the volume pot, right and left channel. Then the other side is our ground here. I might put a few drops of glue on that just to make sure nothing's going to touch each other, but it shouldn't. It's all pretty stable. So I'm going to put it back in the cabinet, turn it on, see if we get any sort of sound coming through the audio with the Bluetooth. All right, works pretty well. All right, so now we confirmed that works. I think what I'll do is I'll put a little glue over those connections, and then we'll reinstall the radio chassis. Need to install a longer antenna wire on it, and then we'll let it run for hours and hours and make sure nothing bad's going to happen.
Have you seen the well-to-do upon Lenox Avenue, on that famous thoroughfare, with their noses in the air, high hats and colored collars, white spats and $15, spending every dime for a wonderful time?
All right, well, that seems to be working pretty well. Let's see.
Putting on the rhythm.
Let's tune to some radio.
Boston leads with 5:15 to go in the first quarter.
Not many
People this week.
fall on ownership and NFL commissioner.
With what he's able to do,
Very,
it's just like
very sensitive radio.
Where we find Jack.
I mean, it's anybody's guess. I mean,
All right, well, it seems like it's pretty happy. I'm going to actually let it sit here and run for a while. I want to make sure nothing is going to break down thermally, because when you put them back in the cabinets, you know, the chassis is up against, there's not as much ventilation anymore. And since on that cabinet, the tubes are going to get hot, the resistors are going to get hot, the transformer is going to get hot. You want to make sure nothing's going to break down thermally. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I know this guy was kind of a disgusting, grimy radio when it started, but I think it turned out rather nice in the end. So thanks so much for watching. Until the next time something comes across the workbench, see you guys next time. Adios.